printers that were around in the 1980s, and it seemed quite odd when you think about all of the stuff that's talked about, all of the computers that are talked about, and all of the hardware that are talked about, that printers seem to be missed out. And it seems quite strange because there were some really innovative printers made throughout the early period of the micro. Now, this one is a printer that was made by Dean Electronics in America, and it was called the Alphacom 32. And it was a direct replacement for the ZX printer that Sinclair did for the Spectrum and the ZX81. And it was genuinely in direct competition with those printers, but the printer, or rather the Alphacom, was a much better unit, and it deserved possibly a better foothold than it did in especially the UK. But because Sinclair's machine was the official Spectrum printer, now I'm guessing that got a bigger foothold initially, but once people found out that the Alphacom 32 was a much superior model, then it started to build sales. And what surprised me is that this was an American made printer, made in a country where the ZX Spectrum didn't really gain a massive foothold. So I guess they were kind of hoping that it was going to take off throughout Europe and other countries as well. But the Alphacom isn't a bad printer. It's very quiet, very quick relative to all the other printers out there, because you remember Dot Matrix and Daisy weren't particularly the fastest things in the world. But what I always found a bit kind of crazy is the way Sinclair marketed the ZX printer, especially as some kind of home office machine. And you wouldn't really want to print out a novel on it. You wouldn't really want to print out a heavy spreadsheet on it, because they were very difficult to read, because the width of the paper that they used was very, very small. It was only a few centimeters across, really. And using it as an everyday printer to print out labels for your discs or your cassettes, or to put your notes onto it, that would have worked out fine. But the machines actually found a little niche for themselves. If you bundled a ZX Spectrum in an attache style briefcase with a printer such as the Alphacom, you could use it as an upgraded scientific calculator, and you could use it in laboratory settings, etc. Or you could even use it in company settings where you needed to do stock taking or auditing, because it was quite compact and easy to carry around. And that's when those little till style receipt printouts would have been worth their weight in gold. But as an office machine, no. I mean, purely the ZX Spectrum being promoted as a office machine with the smallest printer in the world, you must have, or Clive Sinclair must have realised that there is a point to miniaturization, and it's good most of the time, but there is a point where it's too much and it loses its ability to be practical. But having said that, I like the Alphacom because it's quite a neat little unit. It's well designed, it's well built, and it's decades old. It's over 3 decades old, and it still works, and you can still get the paper for it, which is really surprising, especially how quickly things went obsolete in the the IT world. Okay, so we've got a vision of a 1980s office setup, which is a Sinclair Spectrum and a small thermal printer. In this case, the printer is an Alphacom 32, a small thermal printer made by Dean Electronics, and it differs from the ZX printer. It's a thermal paper that doesn't involve an aluminium or aluminum, if you're in America, coating on the outside of the paper. This one prints in blue, and the printer itself is quite well built. It's quite nice to use, and it's very, very quiet. Now, it differs from the ZX printer by being reliable. The doesn't pull the paper through at odd angles, it always feeds it correctly, and it's quite a nice little printer to use. And you see it's attached to a standard 48K Spectrum, and the Spectrum is running with a couple of lines of basically characters just to see how it prints out. So if we now move down to the Spectrum and we do the list command, as you can see here is on the screen, okay, and I'm just going to move over to the printer and press enter. You'll see how quick this prints. Which isn't bad for a little thermal printer. Now, it's very quiet. You compare it to dot matrix printers and the likes, or even daisy wheel printers, which were incredibly noisy. So if we go back to the Spectrum, we'll list that little bit of a program up, and you can see it's immediately back on the screen. And now we're just going to list it again just to see how quick and how quiet this printer really is. It's a nice little printer, there's no doubt about that, and it does do its job very well, and it has the command set from the Sinclair Spectrum and ZX81 already built into it, so it uses the correct command set, so there's nothing to do other than plug it in. And it has an expansion port on the back and a pass-through, so you can actually add other peripherals to your home office setup. So is this little printer something that you would use? Possibly not, because the paper is quite expensive. You're talking about £25 for a handful of rolls, maybe 4 or 5 rolls of paper. And also, because you cannot get the parts for them now, you'd probably want to preserve the printer for a little bit longer to bring it out in demonstrations or to show people what the printers were really like back in the day, kind of thing. But if you have 1 or 2 of these and you've got one as a spare, then use it. Use it to do your cassette labels, because it's ideal for that. Use it to add additions to your notes on your classic computers, so you can staple it into a folder if you keep such things about the machines you're collecting. And that's fine. But try not to think of it as something that's massively useful. I very much doubt it was massively useful when it was brought out, unless you're in a scientific or auditing style setting. And today the use becomes a little more degraded because of the lack of repair parts for these machines and how expensive the paper is. But as I say, it's a great piece of history. It's something that needs to be remembered and something that needs to be held on to for future generations, maybe your children or your children's children and so on. So I hope you found this interesting, because I believe printers have been left out of it, and it's nice to see one in its natural setting alongside a Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Okay, so thanks for watching this short video, thanks for listening, and we'll be back on track with some of the longer looks into building a micro, and also longer looks into the different computers that were out there, as we have been doing up until now. Okay, if you get a chance, subscribe. If you don't, that's fine, but I hope to see you on this channel soon. Thanks for watching.